Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where Kyle Curtin takes you on an extraordinary journey alongside renowned multifamily real estate sponsors and syndication experts from every corner of the United States. We teach you how to harness the power of passive real estate investing and witness the transformation of your wealth building strategy. Let's create wealth together.
Hey guys, how we doing? This is another short form episode. Today we're going to be talking about not overthinking your content. So there was a podcast that I listened to on the past couple days or so. It was with Brian Luebben and Jamie Gruber. And Jamie was interviewing Brian on the Tribe of Millionaires, Gobundance podcast, which absolutely love it, by the way. Highly recommend it. Now, listening to this thing, man, like there are so many freaking nuggets, and I'll link it in the description of this show because I want you guys to check it out, especially if you're posting content, if you're a podcaster yourself, because the amount of value that is in that show is absolutely unmatched by a lot of other podcasts. And essentially, like the things that I was learning on that show, guys, like it's something, literally, it's the reason why I'm doing this right now. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. So essentially, Brian Luebben, he's got a super successful podcast called Action Academy, right? It's all about, entrepreneurs hearing their stories. There's folks in real estate, folks in a lot of different kinds of businesses come on the show, tell their stories. It's an absolutely awesome freaking podcast. Brian's got a show 5 days a week. So absolutely crushes it in the volume department. And upon like hearing that for the first time, it kind of blew me away, because I mean, for me, like for you guys that have been listening to the show, thank you very much, by the way. I absolutely love every single one of you guys, and this has always been a ton of fun. But I for the first couple of years or so, I was doing an episode every single week. And it took a good amount of work, to kind of keep episodes recorded ahead and essentially create like a reserve. So like an episode, like if I recorded 2 episodes in a week, then I would be good for like the next 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Doing them at a 1 a week frequency. And it took off a lot of bandwidth. You know what I mean? It is definitely a bit of work, to manage that, to be talking to potential guests, sending them like the Calendly workflow, all of that type of stuff, getting the times all squared away and everything. And then when I bought the house in Leominster, I ended up, I was doing a lot of the work myself and that type of thing. And essentially that was kind of like something that I could kind of drop off a little bit in a sense. And instead of doing them every week, I switched to a bi-weekly frequency. So I could absolutely still keep going with the podcast, still having a ton of fun and giving value and everything. But, it took a little bit off my plate, to allow me to, get some stuff done with the house, as well as I had a bit more clients on the agency side at that point as well. To just kind of manage and not go crazy. You know what I mean? Just trying to like maintain and keep up with everything. Well, essentially, it's been bi-weekly for probably about a year now at this point. And I've wanted to do a lot more episodes, especially switching over the show to, just folks within the syndication space, sponsors that are nationwide, people in different parts of the syndication world, and really honing in on that sector, right? Because I absolutely freaking love it. I fell in love with it. It's absolutely what I'm putting everything towards and all that stuff. But anyway, not to get off track. But essentially, what I was thinking, and I started doing this in the past month or so, and you guys have actually probably seen some of the episodes at this point. But I was like, all right, I'm finally at a point where I have a good amount of the back office work of the podcast delegated, right? I have a couple folks in the Philippines that have been helping me out for a while. Shout out to Christian. Love you, buddy. Shout out to Kathleen. Absolutely love you. You guys are freaking amazing. And it's always a pleasure to grow with you guys. But basically, so it's been a very long quest of essentially like stepping back from some of the more administrative back end work on the podcast, right? So my goal has always been to just find the guests and just do the interviews, and then use a mixture of both systems and delegation and team members to essentially handle the rest of it, right? With the social media component, with the scheduling component on, Facebook Business Suite, content creation, reels, graphics, the whole gamut, right? Whole shebang. And it's taken a while to get to the point that I'm at now, but I've basically delegated like 95% or so of that back end like process. You know what I mean? So I've been at a point where I've been able to focus a lot less on survival and a lot more on thriving. When it comes to the podcast and the vision and, continuing to just give value in the ecosystem. And essentially, in the past month or so, I've started rolling out dividend episodes, which are essentially like 3 to 15 minute ish segments, which are repurposed from my past episodes. And they're points that are like extremely valuable, extremely topic centric. So essentially, like, a couple of the first dividend episodes I did were with my buddy Dan Milanazzo. And essentially, one of them was like how to phase CapEx projects with Dan Milanazzo. And for that like 10-minute clip or whatever it was that, was part of our conversation in the initial interview, for the long form content, he went through that part. I was asking him some questions. Like, it was a really solid, part of the conversation, right? Like super freaking action packed. And I was like, oh, well, there are definitely going to be some folks out there that are like, just looking for short form, something to absorb quick, on like a short car ride, but something that's extremely valuable to their business as a whole. So I was like, all right, like it's things like that I'm talking about, guys. So like phasing CapEx, like if you're like a large multifamily operator, a sponsor, um, you know, that's something that's going to be pretty valuable to you, especially if there's like a heavy value add component in some of your projects. Like you need to be able to manage that, to make sure things keep going as planned, right? But essentially, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And what I've been doing is, during the week, I'll have an earbud in, just while I'm at my day job or whatever. And I will re-listen to a prior podcast episode of mine just for the purpose of like really scanning through the conversations and picking out between 1 and 3 dividend episodes that are like ridiculously actionable, where the guest just like freaking goes in, you know what I mean? Just like goes crazy. And then going and like briefly editing those, rewriting the description a little bit, coming up with a title, yada, 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 all that fun stuff. Posting on YouTube, the whole 9 yards. So that's something that I started doing. And I'm like, oh, okay, like this is something that works well. I'm like, because it steps up in the quantity department. I'm like, instead of just having a long form interview every other week, now at least I have 2, or 3 or 4 episodes in a 2-week period. By doing those smaller episodes as well. Well, basically, after listening to the show that Jamie and Brian did, it really made me think, like in a crazy freaking way, because like Brian just really has it figured out with the podcast, like friggin' crushes it, like hundreds of thousands of downloads, right? And another thing that's gonna blow your mind that initially stressed me out at first until I listened to the rest of the episode and really like just mentally digested it is he doesn't record any of his episodes in advance. Like he just records off the cuff, and like he's got a mixture of long form interviews, and then some like 9 to like 15-minute segments, some episodes from like last year, and some things that are repurposed and played through. He has killer consistency, and it's freaking awesome. Um, and yeah, so essentially, like that's something that I was thinking. I'm like, oh well, at first, hearing 5 episodes a week, the way that I kind of digested it was that something that would be absolutely kick ass for the Creating Wealth show, but from a bandwidth perspective, like I I haven't found a way to do it yet. You know what I mean? Um, and the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I think I'm just overcomplicating it. So what I've started to do is I have an Excel sheet and I have a shit ton of topics that are written down from like, stories from the past in real estate, and it all relates back to the syndication arm, right? Because that's the vision for the podcast. Like everything needs to revolve around that, like helping active landlords become passive limited partners through like passive multifamily, through inviting sponsors on from different parts of the nation, and hearing their stories and what they're doing and that type of thing. Um, but yeah, I was just overthinking it, guys, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, yeah, like I got my dividend shows. I'm like, that's easy enough. I'm like, it's pretty small bandwidth wise to be able to roll those things out. Um, I'm like, what if? I'm like, what would it look like if I had like a 3-day a week show? So, I can have like a long form episode on a Monday, interviewing a sponsor. The other Monday, I could either step it up a little bit and go back to having sponsors on every single week and dropping those episodes on Monday again. Or I could do a long form solo episode, which I've done a couple of these. And I'm pretty sure this one I'm probably going to drop Wednesday. I'm recording it on 8/25. So you guys are going to see this very shortly. But essentially, at this moment in time, I already have some of the long form solo episodes recorded already. And it's just stuff that's actionable, guys. Like I'm really excited to drop the first one, which is how to make thousands of B2B relationships from your couch. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to get into it, but I'm really excited about it. It's something I've done for the past like 5 years or so that's like transformed my entire life, literally just handing it to you guys, and seeing if it can help anybody, you know what I mean? And just kind of sharing, and there's a lot like, so that's something that I'm going to continue doing. And I realized when I was doing that one, it's been a lot of fun, so like even right now, I'm having a freaking blast. I'm like, just like hit record, like you have your topics and just go, just give value and tell stories and give advice and opinions and that type of thing. Just share, And this was something that Brian's podcast really made me realize. And there was another thing that he mentioned that anybody out there with a podcast will probably think about a good amount. And it's something that really, really caught my eye, or caught my ear, I guess you could say. And that was, we as podcasters are constantly fighting for attention every single day. And it's something that like just hit me like a sack of bricks, right? And I'm thinking about it with my own show of like, oh, I do one episode every other week. I'm like, I'm smoked out of the water. I'm like, you get, some of the syndication shows that I absolutely love to listen to, like Whitney Sewell's syndication show. That's, I'm pretty sure, 5 days a week. I'd have to check again. Brian Luebben shows 5 days a week. I forget. There's a couple of the other ones that are like 5 to 7 days a week, like crazy stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's something to really consider, guys, and it's something that you can even think about. If you're putting content out for YouTube, if you're doing like email newsletters to your investors, like that type of thing, is just to like don't overthink it. Just like if you're listening to like some of the things that I have on my content list, like I'm either like they're either stories from my past in the real estate environment, um like interviews with the sponsors, that type of thing, dividend episodes, things that I've seen, just on my travels and stuff like that, like blogs I've read, parts from books, like, top 5 books in like the syndication, asset class, that type of thing. Um, it's a lot of that kind of stuff. Like literally I always have a podcast in like while I'm working, and stuff like that. So it's things that I'm hearing on podcasts that like, oh, you know what? That's actually really interesting. Or literally like this. This is a concept that I heard on a podcast. It's something that like hit me like a sack of bricks in a good way. And really changed the paradigm. And I'm excited to execute it. And something that I can just essentially like give back to you guys, and like just kind of hear your thoughts on it, you know what I mean? And just share the content to our community, you know what I mean? And but yeah, so it's that's kind of where I'm at now, So basically like I'm aiming for consistency, podcasts. I mean, I've been doing this when this comes out. I want to say that's going to be the 28th is Monday, 29th, 30th is Wednesday. Um, I forget what day it was, but we're coming up on the 3rd anniversary of the show. So essentially, like, podcasting is essentially my main medium for investor attraction, for attracting sponsors, to potentially like do deals with, and that type of thing. So I really need to step up my game to not compete, because I really don't like that word. But to essentially like be able to kind of fight for a spot in a sense in people's podcast feeds, instead of just doing one episode every other week. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, don't freaking overthink it, dude. I'm like, literally make your master list of all the real estate topics, syndication topics, like mindset kind of stuff, all of it relating back to syndications. Give my thoughts on it, past experiences, advice, like whatever the case may be, something of value that's going to help others. Get my list straight for reaching out to other sponsors, continue to run, and then just continuing to listen to like, one of my podcasts a week or something, and then picking out, 1 to 3 of those dividend clips. And then I can rifle off, like 3 episodes a week. And now all of a sudden going from 1 every other week to like 2, and I mean, 1 show every other week to now 3 a week with times 4 is 12 a month instead of 2 a month, And then depending on how that goes, because like my biggest fear with something like that is just running out of content. And I know the day and age that we're in with like ChatGPT and like all this stuff and like all these resources and topics to do, absolutely keeping that in mind. If you guys have any thoughts on that, absolutely open to hearing ideas. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now, you know what I mean? And so that's what's happening from this point going forward is we're gonna have 3 freaking episodes a week. And it's gonna be a lot of fun, just trying to really rifle off as much value as possible to you guys while crushing the consistency game. And like I said, like not just spitting out episodes just to check the box and hit the number, but actually like giving genuine actionable value from putting out these shows. You know what I mean? And a lot freaking more of them. So yeah, absolutely awesome podcast. Jamie and Brian, you guys are friggin' incredible. Absolutely crushing it in a lot of different ways. Love you very much. That podcast was absolutely one that I'm saving and I'm definitely going to reference for a very long time. And yeah, it might actually change everything, with for me, like with the show and grow at a drastically more accelerated rate. Um, just because a principle was born, of like, hey, dude, you can have consistency, you can bring value, like just like you don't have to overcomplicate it, you know. So yeah, just a little something for you guys. Until the next one. I hope you guys have a fantastic day today, night tonight, morning, this morning. If you're at the gym, like keep crushing those miles. I see you on the treadmill. crushing it. But alrighty, guys, that's it for this one. Let me know what you think about this. Shoot me a message on anything. Please leave a rating and a review on the podcast. I never ask, but I'm kind of starting to. It helps me give value to a lot more people, spread the word. Hopefully create wealth together. But yeah. Alrighty, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode. We want to thank you for being a valued listener of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Make sure to visit www.creatingwealth.com to connect with us. Dive into our ever-expanding library of informative blogs. Get access to our private investor portal and explore a wide range of additional valuable resources. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to create wealth together.